Next speaker is a good friend from Belgium, Stefan Gortz, who is also one of the pioneers of studying adenomyosis. Stefan, thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. I first would like to thank for being invited here, and like to thank the marvelous idea of Sergio, Attilio, and Luis to bring together these three kingdoms, and so that we can fight each other and see where we can reach each other and reach a hand. So, if the kingdom of hysteroscopy and ultrasound come together, join together, we can have a privilege and giving to the kingdom of RT to increase probably the results of RT, or at least to try to understand why in RT you have some failures. So we know that with the introduction of the imaging, we are switching from the histology to the clinical entity of adenomyosis. And before it was pathology at hysterectomy, we are coming now in the post-hysterectomy phase with imaging with a sensitivity of 80% and specificity in the mean of also 80%, which means that all the articles on treatment are biased since 1 out of 5 did not have adenomyosis and 1 out of 5 probably were missed. And I would like also to thank Katerina because she already paved the way to my final conclusion, but we will see how we go. So we know that due to the imaging, we can now make a diagnosis of adenomyosis early in life. And so diffuse adenomyosis we can find in 34% in newly gravid women, and also in adolescents we can see that there is some adenomyosis. If you go through the results, as already been said before, adenomyosis in one patient by Keith is not adenomyosis in another patient. And these are data in the literature where you also can see that there's not so much difference in pregnancy rate, but that there is a higher difference in miscarriage rate, which is higher in patients with adenomyosis. The problem here is that with publications like this, you have a lot of data inside with different forms of adenomyosis. And as already been said by Professor Isaac Kustos, the most important thing is that the inner myometrium probably is much more impairing the pregnancy outcome because you will have a higher miscarriage rate in those patients. So the literature on adenomyosis is very confusing because there are different types of adenomyosis which not are specified into the papers. The concomitant pathology frequently is not mentioned, and it's not clear in most of the articles on which kind of adenomyosis is working. Let me come back on one of the initial data on the endometrial and subendometrial unit. And in fact, the stratum subvascularis, which we are calling the inner myometrium, is already apparent at the beginning of the second trimester with a circular arrangement of mesenchymal cells, while the stratum vasculare and supravasculare respectively only develop in the third trimester of the gestation, or even postnatally. So there's a huge difference between these two entities. The realization, however, that the inner portion of the human myometrium constitutes a separate entity was already known and described by Watt and Grosjean going back till 1898. This has been shown to you in previous presentation, and it's important to mention that what you're seeing on ultrasound in the same patient comparing with MRI, although it's the same, it's different because the thickness of the junctional zone on MRI was larger than the thickness on the junctional zone on transvaginal ultrasound. So the thickness of the junctional zone as such cannot remain the gold standard for the diagnosis of adenomyosis, and we have to go for the direct markers such as the subendometrial lines and buds and the hyperechogenic island in the myometrium, as is the irregular junctional zone or the interrupted or invaginated junctional zone in those patients, which already also has been said in the revised definition of the Musar classification has been described also by Margaret Uren yesterday. So the cardinal diagnostic feature of adenomyosis based upon histology, which means the ectopic endometrial glands or the adenocomponent, differs from that of the imaging technique where we are looking at smooth muscular changes or the meiosis component. And this is also what you can see in the publication of the group of Margaret Uren with Rasmussen, where they paid attention on the serrated junctosome, which you can see here, which has an invasion of more than 3 millimeters into the myometrium, but still with a contact to the endometrial layer. And when they looked at histology in those patients of these serrated zones, then the adenomyosis was only detected in about 40% of these patients. So, and this kind of serrated junctosome is probably the same as we, together with Vivo Brosens, mentioned it already in our first class classification on junctosome hyperplasia, mentioning that the proliferation of the inner myometrium smooth muscle cells it's not necessarily linked to the presence of heterotopic endometrial implants considered as an obligatory feature for the histological diagnosis of adenomyosis. So the subbasal adenomyosis does not fulfill the usual morphological criteria required for the establishment of the diagnosis. So, and you know that we are using the spirometry for taking biopsies. Now, by doing so in patients with junctosome hyperplasia and looking at the results of the biopsies, we see that in 82% of these biopsies, we could not find signs of adenomyosis as been described before in the literature. So coming back to this, we know that there is a difference between the inner myometrium and the outer myometrium. And we also know, which has been described by the group of Kunz and Leyendecker, that there is a uterine hyperperistalsis and dysperistalsis. But we can ask us the question, all women have such a peristalsis of the uterus. Why only a small percentage of women develop adenomyosis or endometriosis, giving the ubiquity of uterine peristalsis in those patients? And why do some adolescents from menarche on have this dysmenorrhea, which is in fact the pathology of the uterus? So let me try to explain a little bit that probably there is a genetic factor in those patients. If you look at the normal human endometrium as been described in the paper of Yamaguchi, the endometrial glands form a complex network, as already also been mentioned by Keith Isaacson, along the muscular layer, similar to a rhizosome of grass. And the endometrial glands are monoclonal, arising from a single stem or progenitor cells. So if genetic alterations occur in the stem progenitor cells in this rhizosome, and due to the fact that you have a network under this, then it will spread easily through all the rhizome, and you can have alterations in those patients. So the basal layer of endometrium stays also during the menstruation, which is clearly shown by Yamaguchi in this video, where the yellow is in fact the basal layer of the endometrium, where in fact you have this network which is present. Now, important to know is that in the paper of Inoue, that looking at the presence of KRAS mutations, that also in normal endometrium, in patients without adenomyosis and endometriosis, you have the presence of KRAS mutation in those progenitor cells of the basal endometrium in approximately 30% of the patient. And indeed, it's higher in patients with adenomyosis or endometriosis. So the increase in the frequency of KRAS-mutated glands in normal endometrium may be probably at the origin of the adenomyosis. So we hypothesize that the pathological changes in the junctional zone, the bud and the cyst and the interruptions which you can see, are considered as the direct signs of adenomyosis, whether it's hereditary or caused by repetitive trauma and repair, with or without histological proven adenomyosis. Hyperplasia of the junctional zone should not be considered adenomyosis. It can be that this pathology is at the origin of further development of adenomyosis, and we at this very moment do not know if it will stay like this, if it will increase, or if it will disappear later on. But at least even when you have not detectable signs of adenomyosis, it is a pathology of the junctional zone. And we should call this specific pathology of the basal endometrium and the inner myometrium as a separate pathological entity, and we're suggesting that we should call it the endomyometrial unit disorder, or EMUD. So as in hysteroscopies, you or we have the privilege that we can treat separately this very identified entity, and that we can treat it and we can look at our results. So we are not speaking anymore about diffuse adenomyosis and adenomyosis of external side. We are really focusing on the inner myometrium, and then we can finally see what the result will be. So these are the different points which we can have. This is a normal one, endometrial junctional zone, outer myometrium. This is hyperplasia of the junctional zone. You can have the hyperplasia with microcyst, with buds and lines. You can have the presence of adenomyoma, and you can have the same, but with a normal junctional zone without hyperplasia and the presence of this pathology. So also, it is an endometrium, myometrium disorder. So also the endometrium is important, and So the micropolyps are also signs that have been told previously by Vittorio Ciccinelli, signs of focal hyperemia. Certainly micropolyps are signs of endometritis. Now, we know that in patients with adenomyosis, we have a higher incidence of endometritis in those patients. We can be an epigenetic factor in those patients, which are promoting the development of adenomyosis. Typical signs seen at histology already shown are the cystic presence, the defects in the endometrium, and also shown already in the paper of Attilio Di Specchio, where you see the typical endometrial defects, where we have no biopsies that these are signs of adenomyosis. So what we can treat with hysteroscopy, with the new instrumentation, with small instruments we have, are the focal lesions of adenomyosis, which can be cystic, or we can fiber adenomyoma. We can do it by mechanical resection, a partial resection, and bipolar coagulation, or only with using bipolar coagulation. The spirotome can help you to find your way to a more cystic structure which is lying here, which you not directly can see at hysteroscopy. And under ultrasound guidance, you can go to the cyst, you can pull away again the spirotome, and then you have a pathway which can guide you up to the cystic structure, and you can have access to the cystic structure to treat it in a proper way. So there's no way around. You need ultrasound in the operating room when you're operating for adenomyotic tissue. This is another hysteroscopic picture with a cystic structure here. By lowering the intrauterine pressure, you will see the abnormal vascularization present. When you're going in with the scissors, you will see this brownish fluid which is coming out, typical for a cystic adenomyotic cyst in the subendometrial layer, and you can dissect it out completely. When you look inside, sometimes you have the typical aspect that you can see also in ovarian endometrioma with the presence of endometrial-like tissue, but it also can be much more fibrotic, like as you can see here in this kind of cyst, Probably, I have no explanation, but probably can be that this cyst is already there for a longer time and is not so active anymore than when you have the real typical endometrial-like tissue inside of the cyst. I will go on. This is the fibroadenoma. Again, by using the scissors and going around, you can remove this adenomyoma in a proper way. And as already showed you yesterday by Rudy Campo, you can treat it in a perfect way, even more now, more accurately by probably using the mini bipolar resectoscope. I would like to come back on the data which already have been showed you yesterday by Rudy, but important here is that when you have subtle lesions like here and you treat it, then finally your delivery rate will be very good in those patients. So when you have also these lesions present in presence of hyperplasia, then we are giving some hormonal treatment before. We also reach pregnancies, but you see that the pregnancy rate is lower and that you have, again, even when you give some treatment, that again you have a higher miscarriage rate. These are only preliminary data. This has been confirmed by larger series, but I think by limiting our description and our treatment to these disorders of the young zone, we can finally understand what's going on. This already has been showed you yesterday by Dr. Campo, but I would like to come back here because imaging not always tells us everything. And you can see here that you are on ultrasound, you have only a small cystic structure here. The MRI is completely normal. Now, if we go on hysteroscopy, we have not only one small cystic structure, but if you start cutting in the fundal area, you will find that there are 5 or 6 small cystic areas which are present. So hysteroscopy, certainly in those patients, will be an added value in the treatment. So these are the things which we can treat easily by hysteroscopy. Diffuse images or diffuse adenomyosis, there's no place for hysteroscopic treatment in those patients, and this has to be treated by hormonal medication or suppression. We know that in young adolescents already adenomyosis is present, and we know that all these other adolescents have heavy dysmenorrhea. And I would like you to ask you the question, is there a place of combining ultrasound and hysteroscopy in those adolescents to better understand the initiation and the pathology of adenomyosis? To conclude, we are diagnosing the diagnosis switching from histology to imaging. The junctional zone hyperplasia is not necessarily linked to the presence of heterotopic endometrial implants and should be considered as far as we believe in a separate entity, the endomyometrial unit disorder. Only by hysteroscopy we have the privilege to treat a well-defined phenotypical entity of adenomyosis, enabling to see the impact upon reproduction. And it's clear that our results should be confirmed by larger study and that we're only at the beginning of what we try to understand from adenomyosis. So these are the 3 kingdoms. Keith, I will help you. Why not include the woman? Because then the kings will start fighting each other and it becomes much more interesting. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation.